drive around, and in the meantime enjoy myself. Yeah.
It's cool. Do you have a favorite mosque?
Well, I didn't visit my favorite mosques yet. I want to go to Isfahan.
Oh.
That is really, I mean, there is a nice mosque, of course. Edirne has nicer mosques than, for example, but that depends on your taste. I like this very simple type of mosques. Yeah, it will be Isfahan, because looking at pictures, that's really amazing.
Is that the mosque that have colorful
yes,
windows
the tiles,
and tiles, yeah.
The tiles. And of course you also have similar tiles from Izmit,
Yes.
which are also well known in Turkey. Yeah, Izmit is also an interesting place to go to, because in Izmit, I mean, for Christians, Izmit was a kind of, in 300 after Christ, around that time.
Or Izmit?
Iznik maybe.
Iznik, sorry.
Yes,
Iznik.
because
Iznik. I
Izmit
always
is
get well, Izmit is also interesting.
Yeah, there's so many factories.
I had a student from Izmit who says, why the hell do you find Izmit interesting? It's boring, it's conservative, whatever. I said, but that's what I like. I'm used to different types of things, so I want to see those places. Izmit is a very nice town. Iznik is also nice because it's a historical place for Christians, because in 300 after Christ they decided that certain dogma should hold for Christians because of political unity. And they had this they had this very famous convention of bishops who decided on certain issues. And people still believe in those axioms or issues, although they were decided by human beings, yeah? So there are interesting places over here, yeah?
Actually, we are from Eskişehir. Do you know Eskişehir?
Yeah, of course I know Eskişehir.
Have you been to Eskişehir?
Yes, of course.
Did you like it?
I like the inner city, the wooden houses I like.
Odun Pazarı.
Yeah, that was nice. I also visited Anadolu University. Yeah. That was also a nice campus, a little bit better than Sabancı campus, but okay.
More green.
More green, more less isolated.
Yeah.
But it was nice, yeah, it was really nice, yeah.
When we were a child, I had a best friend, and we were in Eskişehir. And Eskişehir is a smaller city, I think smaller than Izmit.
Yes.
And my best friend went to Izmit because her father started working there or something. And Izmit was just the most, like, the biggest city and the most beautiful, attractive city for us, because we haven't been outside of Eskişehir. We were thinking that, wow, Izmit is very nice, it's very beautiful. And when we come to here, we just next to Izmit, and I saw like all the factories and stuff. I was like, wow, it's very different than I imagined.
Of course,
it was a big disappointment for me.
Of course. But Eskişehir is not that small.
Yeah, in the past it was smaller, but I think in last 10 years or something, because of the Anadolu University and other programs, it's attracting more students and more people. And I think people know Eskişehir as a modern side of.
That's
more
true.
modern side of
Eskişehir
Turkey,
is
that's
much more. I
why.
mean, I was surprised because, of course, if you visit the university, your Turkish host will like to show you around. Yeah, so they show you around. And then I was amazed about the number of bars they had in Eskişehir.
Yeah.
I could even get Belgian beer.
There's so many boutique bars in Eskişehir.
Belgian beer and Eskişehir. They had all kinds of different beer from Europe, and I was extremely surprised.
I think also Eskişehir has the highest number of Erasmus agreement or something.
I
So
can
so
imagine.
many European students
Yes.
come to Eskişehir,
Yes.
Erasmus students. That's why I think it also affects maybe.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, if I was a European student, I'd go to Eskişehir rather than
Why?
Istanbul. But
Why don't you go to Istanbul?
hocam,
I
Istanbul.
would go to Istanbul.
Yeah.
I mean, as a resident of Istanbul for the past 21 years now, Istanbul is just too crowded, hocam. There are too many issues with Istanbul. I don't find it a nice place to be in, really.
Well, that's why you have campus. You have boring campus. You can go out if you want, if you have the time. And then you can go back to the camping site. I always call this the camping site, yeah? Where you have some rest, yeah? And then, of course, I have to say, which not all students have a car. Of course, sometimes you need to have a car because otherwise you're quite isolated on this campus. And unfortunately, the connections with the bus are not that
only 2
good.
times in a day.
2 times or 3 times in a day. And you don't really go out because you don't have the opportunity, you maybe don't have the time. But this is really a camping site. And then you can go to hectic Istanbul for a couple of hours and then come back. Yeah?
I guess.
I actually really like this like lifestyle, because in campus it's like so restful and we can do anything and we can go to Istanbul center anytime. I think if I was living in Istanbul, probably I would be not liking that much.
No.
I would probably be like complaining about the traffic and all the people, but now when I go to on weekends, or I don't know, on Fridays and weekends, I'm always thinking, wow, like it's a very nice combination of people, culture, and it's still a kind of a touristic place for me. But I think if I was living in Istanbul, then I would just be complaining about so many issues. And like
well, you know, the first of all, the problem when you live on campus as faculty, the university takes very well care of you. If there's something breaks down, Dutch are used to repair everything, yeah? Because labor is expensive. So I'm used to wash my car. I'm used to repair the light, yeah? When I came in Turkey, I was surprised because you have certain guys to do that type of job, yeah? So you don't take your machinery and repair things in the house. No, somebody else doing it. And of course, if something breaks down at Sabancı campus, you call Mehmet, and they repair it for you. So you don't have this fuss of taking care of all kinds of repair, because I still remember Ilker. Ilker once his water tube broke. Yeah? So they needed to have somebody to fix it. Of course, you also know, they tell you, you call them, they tell you, well, we're coming today. Ilka waited all day, no repairman coming. Yeah? That sometimes happens in Turkey, you know? Yeah. Sorry. So that takes a lot of organization skills, that takes a lot of patience before something is repaired. Yeah? And at Sabancı campus, you call Mehmet, and the guy shows up together with the crew, and he repairs things, and you don't have to worry about anything. So that is the nice, convenient way of living on campus.
Yeah, campus life is so comfortable.
Well, I know some students will disagree with you, because I also have to say, well, when I was a student, we partied a little bit more than you did, at least.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I'm always surprised that at campus, I mean, maybe that's because I was living in a different era as a student in the 70s. And of course, also maybe in a different country, I mean, different mentality. But I'm not saying that we were partying all evening, but student fraternities, you could become a member of a student fraternity. I don't think you have that in Turkey, a student fraternity. Yeah? The lack of social, I see that much. Yeah? Some kind of, there are all kinds of clubs, of course, but there doesn't seem to be a very social life on campus. That's why a lot of students don't like it. I can understand it. Yeah,
it's
I
more
think it's
activity focused. Yeah, I think in Sabancı students are more independent than like by themselves, because of that. I think most independent students. Yeah, I agree with you, but I think activities, so maybe that's why. I think in campus students are mostly studying. And
studying.
Maybe not.
Politically correct. I'm not going to say anything about Turkish students, but I don't have the feeling that students are always studying very, very, very hard.
Yeah, let's say in final period, finals period.
Yeah, okay, but that's also, but of course, that's another thing. Of course, the system is also different than in
Yeah.
Holland. In Holland, you have one exam at the end. Yeah, you need to have 60 points out of 100, otherwise you fail. Okay, here it's a little bit different. But you don't have this stress of this is the extreme American system, that you have midterms, that you have maybe, if you have 6 courses or 5 courses, you have 3 or 4 midterms, 3 or 4 exams for one topic. So you have 20 exams in total, which means in a week, how long does the semester take?
14.
14 weeks. So you have almost every week, or at least at the end, 2 or 3 exams at the end. So you run from exam to exam, crisis management, yeah, I call this. And so the way Turks are very much trained in doing exams, because that's what they learn.
Yeah.
But is it the best way of getting educated? I have my doubts about it. But of course you are inside the American, you are inside the system.
I also agree with you. Yeah, I think from the primary school we're trained in this
Trained,
way, yeah.
exams, test,
Something
test,
we
test,
don't like,
test,
but-
test, test.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
was,
but I think this system also makes me working more than the other system. Probably, if I had the system in
no,
the
but
end,
that's,
then
but that's
probably-
mentality.
Yeah, maybe. If I if I had the system, the exam in the end, probably
Victim
I
of
would
the
be,
system
yeah.
is the thought.
I wouldn't be like studying so much probably. But yeah.
Well,
that's-
the problem is, this is a matter of time management, of
Yeah.
course, yeah? I also didn't study that hard, yeah? Well, okay, I did my job. Apparently, I had a very nice math. Well, actually, after my second year of math education, I was 18 starting my math education, and at that time in Holland you could only do a master's. A master's was 4 years. So I finished at the age of 22. Of course, a lot of students took 6 years or 5 years, but for some strange reason, I wanted to finish quickly. So I was 22, and after the age of 21, I never did any exam anymore. Because I had a professor who was my supervisor, and I had oral exams. And so when I was 22, all the exam business was over, and I could start with my PhD, yeah? So I didn't have this continuous pressure of doing exams each week. But at the same time, of course, I was maybe a model, well, maybe not a model, well, maybe I was a model student. At least I never had problems with my supervisors. And I did what I had to do. So by planning things properly, I also had a social life, of course, because that's crucial, having a social life. You cannot only, you can maybe study 5-6 hours effectively each day, but you also need to have a social life, otherwise you get completely crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And well, so that was that was a little bit different than what I'm used to here. Yeah.
Actually, I was also curious about, you also worked in Berkeley, and I was like wondering how Berkeley is different than here, or
Okay, first of all, okay. People nowadays focus a lot on these so-called well-known universities. Harvard, Berkeley, okay, yeah, okay. I also had the same. When my professor offered me a PhD position, my Dutch professor, it was a Jewish intellectual German professor, Cohen. He was really in suit every day, yeah, real Jewish intellectual. You don't see them nowadays anymore, yeah, real academic Jewish intellectual. A very stiff professor, very strict, but in some way I could get along very well with him. And he offered me a position in the United States to do a PhD with one of his friends at a good university, a very good university. And then I thought, okay, because everybody was talking about Berkeley, Princeton, all that stuff. It's difficult, you should be a genius to be there. So I was a little bit insecure at that time. And I thought, well, it's better probably to do a PhD in Holland because it's not common in Holland to do a PhD abroad. You do the PhD, if you do a PhD, you do it in Holland. And you get a good education, yeah? So I was a little bit scared, insecure, because I thought all these brilliant guys over there, you know. And then by accident, after I finished my PhD, I got invited to Berkeley because they got to know me as a student. And they said to me, why don't you teach here? And then I went to this so-called famous Berkeley University. Of course, there were some nice, very intelligent people over there, 2 or 3 or 4. They were brilliant guys, but all of them were hardworking. And of course, there were 7 or 8 Nobel Prize winners, yeah? But the joke in Berkeley was, you know why you want to have a Nobel Prize? You get a free parking spot. Because at that time, they had problems parking the cars. So if you had a Nobel Prize. So what I met a lot of nice people over there. I had a wonderful time over there. I sometimes regretted I didn't stay in the United States because there were opportunities for me to stay. But I didn't like American society because the American society is really a Wild West type of society. You don't have solidarity among each other. Everybody is on its own. So I didn't like the social climate over there. And that's why I left. And Berkeley, of course, has this name of God, brilliant university. But you have to realize most of the people work hard over there. They work like hell. I had Chinese students who worked in the night, undergraduate students. Because in Chinese culture, if you had a bad grade, your father would beat you up. Mm-hmm. So if you go to those universities, you really should maybe change your mentality a little bit, because everybody's working very, very, very hard over there. And that's why they are so good. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And of course, I mean, it's also a lot of PR, public relations, MIT, Berkeley, well, a lot of public relations. And of course, a lot of money is poured in, so they can do a lot of things. They can hire maybe very good people. But I think it's really overestimated. The problem is with Sabancı, that's what I always find. Now I'm probably going to say something politically incorrect.
Good job. Go for it.
Okay. I came at Sabancı, and Sabancı has a lot of potential. You have good accommodations. Teachers are, in general, well educated. Of course, some teachers are better than other teachers, but the same with students. Some students are better than other students. And what I don't understand is Sabancı has much more potential than it really shows. Of course, that also depends partly on the student population. Mm-hmm. I also understand that a lot of my students, they study industrial engineering because their parents think they should study industrial engineering. So there is this issue of that as a student, you're not really free to choose what you want. Your family determines a lot of your future, which is in my opinion, negative. I never did that with my children. I said, you should do whatever you want, as long as you are good in it.
What are they doing, hocam, right now?
Well, to my surprise, they both have a PhD. One did study pure math. My son studied pure math. I never encouraged him. But I can imagine, because sometimes we had these crazy Russian mathematicians in our home, and we had a lot of stories about math, stories about people, stories about history. Of course, for my wife, it was not always that nice being surrounded by mathematicians. And so maybe he got the feeling for that. He really liked it. And now he's working in a high-tech company. He did a PhD. He did coding theory, and now he's working in a high-tech company doing all kinds of computing skills, and he likes it. Well, he's the type of guy who wants to go every 2 years to another job, because then he get bored. And my daughter did a PhD in applied economics, applied econometrics. And she is now working at the Ministry of Education in Holland.
Wow.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, but they're already 30. Well, I actually got a shock this week, or 2 weeks ago, because they're already 37.
Wow. This is
So my children are older than most of my students.
so hocam. Hans.
Hocam,
Yeah, Hans, yeah, please, Hans, yeah. I can tell you a nice story about that, but okay.
Before you continue, there was a question. Hocam, you talked about the pressure of exams and stuff. One of our listeners asked, what about the pressure of stochastic process, hocam?
Okay, let me tell you this. I am hired by Sabancı. Sabancı claims to be a good university. Yeah?
Yes.
I'm hired by Sabancı to give you the best possible education. Because Sabancı wants to benchmark itself. Your parents are also interested in getting the best possible education, because they pay a lot of money for your education.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you should sometimes teach material which is maybe not that obvious, because that's the only thing you can learn if you get it from an experienced person. We could teach you all Excel, push buttons, but what's the use of paying then 15,000 euros? Well, what do you pay now?
Yes,
60,000 liras?
Yes, I mean, the ones
What's
who
the
pay...
use of it? So sometimes you have to suffer. Life is not always easy, even not for professors. I hope that answers your question. I know this was a notorious course. I first taught IE 301. That was also notorious. Every course I teaching becomes a little bit notorious.
And popular.
Well,
also between
popular,
the
well.
students. Everyone's.
Well, let's
after
say
the
infamous,
exams of,
hocam.
I remember after the exam of IE, I think 302, right?
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about the exams and.
Well, sometimes I have tricks, yeah? It's better to, let's say, it's better to teach it in such a way that everybody expects a difficult exam than just the other way around. In the sense that everybody thinks this is easy, and then the exam is extremely difficult. But of course, what I always feel, of course, I don't expect that everybody likes my course. Who's interested? I mean, okay, why do you have to know Poisson processes? Yeah? Okay, well, nice, but this is not important in life. Yeah? You teach a certain field because you want to let people think in an organized way. Education is not about knowing all kinds of things. Education is training your brain in attacking certain types of problems and using a lot of time your common sense. So that's what education should be about. And not only about technical things, but also about developing your social intelligence and how to deal with people, you know. So education is much more than only doing engineering, yeah, or mathematics. But of course, if they hire you and they claim to be the best university in Turkey, you should give them the best material.
Well, that makes sense, Hocam.
And of course, let me tell you, not everybody liked it. There were some students who liked it very much. There were some students who hated me probably for this. But I don't have to win a popularity contest. I have to give people a good education.
Yeah, you're right. I was actually going to ask about, you said you had children at the age of 22, right?
No, they're 37 now.
37.
No, like when you had your children, you were 22.
Yes.
So
23 actually.
23. So you were doing masters or PhD? Or
I was second year PhD student.
So actually, it's kind of also.
No, let's say, sorry, that's not true. I married when I was 22 because at that time, that's the same as in Turkey. I already had a girlfriend for 5 years. My first girlfriend.
And
My first girlfriend.
and you are still together, Hocam.
We're still together.
Wow, impressive.
So I actually met my first serious girlfriend I married with. She's a remarkable woman, still. Although she doesn't sometimes agree, but okay. I will probably get questions about this tonight.
Actually, you live in campus, right?
She lives in campus.
Oh, wow, cool.
And what happens is, of course, she came from a religious family, Protestant. And of course, in that time, you would only marry if you would find a job, you would have certainty. So when I got a master degree, she is a teacher, we got married, and then 2 years by accident, we got twins. We never thought about getting children, but they were there something. They were there suddenly. So that was the next challenge, and well, it worked out well, yeah.
My parents were always talking about how hard is like raising twins.
No.
Was it
Children
hard?
is the nicest thing you can have.
Yeah, but we also have an older sister, 4 years older than us. So when we were both, she was also young, and my parents were
That's true.
kind of alone.
That's
so
true.
they said like they had some hard times when they
That's
were
true.
raising us.
Well, I have to say, a situation in my time was a little bit different. I was working, and at that time in Holland it was common that wives didn't have a job. Now it's changed. Now women should also have a job to be financially independent. Yeah. Sometimes it was also common that with one salary you could survive. Of course, nowadays, if you want to have a Volvo, you want to have a new house, you want to have 3 times of holidays each year, of course, one salary is not enough. Yeah. So that happened. So my wife was at home. And I also was taking care of the children because Dutch husbands are supposed to also take care of the education and the taking care of children. So I changed diapers, I fed my children. I mean, my wife couldn't breastfeed, so I did it myself with the bottle. So we were quite busy, and having twins that nice because they play together. Your parents refer to the fact you have this older sister which is 4 years older. They gave all the attention to you. Your older sister becomes a little bit jealous. She does all kinds of nasty things. So the parents have to look at what the hell is she doing now. But when you have twins, they play together.
Yeah, they also actually saying like that. They said when you were like babies, you were so like you were just sitting and playing each other, but your older sister was like having all the messages. You're right.
Of course. So that's much easier. Yeah, that's much easier. And of course, you always forget. You only remember the nice things. You don't remember the sometimes difficult things anymore. So that's probably good. Otherwise, nobody would get children.
Do you have son
Yes,
or granddaughter?
yes.
Wow, how old are they?
I have a grandson. My son